All right, all right, all right. Good to see you people. We've got some friendly faces, some people I know in the live chat. I think that's fantastic. It's really great to see you all out here. We haven't done a Filmora live stream in a while, and I got to be honest with you, that's been a bit of a missing thing in my life. There's been so much going on recently. Including Vid Summit was a couple of weeks ago. I was out with the Two Buddy team doing that. There's new things in the works that have been going on with Filmora, that some things I've talked to you guys about, some things I haven't. So today I'm going to try to do my best to catch up with all of you guys. See so many familiar faces right there. Matt Hayes, good to see you, my friend. Joe's Geek Show, good to see you. Cheaper Charlie, thank you for the super chat. That was very nice of you. I really appreciate that. I don't expect any of you guys to have to give me anything, but it's always nice when you do. I do appreciate it. So listen, there's a few things we're going to cover today. Some of you guys know that Filmora has, can you guys hear me okay? Let me know if there's any issues with hearing me or if anything is twisted or off or any of that stuff, and we'll see if we can correct it along the way. I'm putting a lot of my attention on you guys in the chat today. Because like I said, there's a new version of Filmora out. I haven't live streamed since the newer version came out. There's been some changes. There's been some things that are working really great. There's been some things that aren't working so great. We'll talk about all of them. There's some new features that you do need to be aware of. You sound fine. Thanks, Nikita Snowden. Wow, that's a great last name right there. So there's some things I want to make sure that I talk to you guys about. If there's any questions that you have, I did put a link to a questionnaire form down in the description. You can click on that. It'll put the question in. Sometimes when I'm doing a lot, I miss some questions. Mr. Paul Peck right there in the chat room, my friends. Love Mr. Paul Peck. I have to sport his shirt. When I saw him at Vid Summit, I made him give me a Paul Peck drywall shirt. I got to wear that in one of my videos or live streams soon because it's awesome. Good to see you, my friend. Young Sandwich, love from India. Love from New England, my friend. Right back at you. So listen, like I said, make sure you hit the questionnaire down in the description that you can drop a question in so I don't miss anything. And the other thing I want to talk to you guys about is the Halloween promotion. Filmora's Halloween promotion is still going on. It's going on till the 15th. That link is also in the description. You can spin once a day. They're giving away a ton of different prizes and discounts. They're even giving away a GoPro Hero 8 Black. You don't have to do anything. You just click on the link, spin the wheel, you get a chance at winning it. And you can do it once a day up to the 15th. So make sure you stop by every day, check it out, throw a spin in the wheel. Free stuff is always cool. I like free stuff. It falls right in my price range. Love from Sweden, Ice Dragon. Hey, love back at you. Tons of love. Love with a New England accent. That's what you get here. So listen, there's been a bunch of things that people have been asking me lately that I haven't been getting around to. I wish I could get around to these questions quicker in the videos. A lot of times you guys will say to me, hey, can you cover this? Can you cover that? But I only can put out so many videos at a time. And especially when I get bogged down with a lot of work, a lot of you guys know I also work for TubeBuddy and I do videos for them and it's always something. And I'm a channel consultant, so I'm always helping build other channels and get people on the right track. So there's a lot on my plate, and sometimes I don't get to answer every question in every video where you guys say, man, I'd really like to see a video on this thing if you could solve it. I try to get into the comments sections of my videos and do my best to talk to you guys there. I love how active you guys are. I swear, I have the best community going. And I'm not just saying that just because it's you guys here and I'm here. I'm telling you, this has very little to do with me, and it has everything to do with you guys. When I go into my comments section, very rarely do I have a lot of spam and junk I have to clean out of there. I get some, like anybody does, but most of the time, you guys are so fantastic. The audio was super clear. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate that. You guys are so fantastic about helping each other in the comments section. You ask great questions in the comments section. I try to answer each and every one of them, and if I have an answer that can help you, I always try to do that. And a lot of times I just like being down there because that's how I get to know you guys. You guys are some of the coolest people I've been able to talk to. You have great questions. You guys have taught me stuff. You guys have taught me stuff. I'm going to show you one of those things right now. Hang on a second. Let me pull this up. I want to show you something that I was taught by one of the community members recently, which was really cool. Let me do this. I'm going to just set something up over here so that it makes sense. But I had done an entire video on how to use the zoom effects. I don't know if you guys remember that, where I had done different zoom effects to zoom into your screen and then be able to zoom back out and move around smoothly. Do you remember that one? Because I use it a lot in my tutorials. Is I'll move around the screen. I'll go from one part of the screen to another and try to do it as smoothly as possible. But I had done a certain thing with the way I use the pan and zoom feature that one of the community members reached out and said, "Hey, Daniel, you know there's an easier way." And I went, "Really? Really?" So let me see if I can pull this up and let me see if you can see it okay. Hold on one second. Screen capture. It's been a while. I'm out of practice. Let's try this. All right. So here's the Filmora. Here's your Filmora screen, right? And you've got a piece of footage down in here. One thing I don't think I have to explain, but this is a new feature, is that with the render button having coming back, the render feature right over here. I don't know if you can see let me make sure you can see my mouse or not. But that red line that's across the top here, just at the top of your timeline, that's telling you when you need to render, by the way. And I don't know if we've covered that a lot, but I want to make sure that I do mention it, that that red line is here. And whenever you see the red line, it gives you the opportunity to render, but you don't have to. If your computer's running smoothly, that's fine. It's just telling you that there's files, this red line right along the whole top of your timeline. It's just saying that you can render. And right over here is that render button that starts that process. This is my super slow computer I'm using right here, not my editing one. So it's slow, but as you'll see, I'm just gonna do a second of it so you can see. See right there in the middle, the beginning section turned green, and now this other section is red because it starts rendering it, and where it's rendered, it turns green. But there was a cool thing. I used to do this thing that if I wanted to zoom around, I would hit the crop and zoom feature, and let's say I would zoom into, if I click to hit the end section, and some of you know this, there's two windows. When you open up pan and zoom, you can click inside each box. The larger green is where you start. It actually says start in the corner and end up in the upper left. And if you click inside of each box, it'll go back and forth, so you can control that zoom. So if I wanted to zoom in, I would say, okay, I'm going to zoom into this upper left corner, right? And then I moved along. That just applied that to this entire clip. I'm going to split this right here. So now, let's say this beginning section here, I've just applied that, so it's slowly zooming in towards that upper left corner. This is a pretty slow zoom right there, but it's moving its way in. It's slowly going up towards that upper left. Now, let's say I was doing that during a particular tutorial, but once I got to where I wanted to be, I wanted to stop right there. Let's say that's the place I wanted to stop. The next section where I had split it, I would always open up the crop and zoom tool. Whoops, let me undo that. I would open up the crop and zoom tool. I just accidentally changed that. I don't want to do that. 1 second. Let me split that one more time, and I would, if I can get this right, it's been a while. You can see I'm out of practice. I would open up this crop and zoom tool, and if I wanted to hang on this upper window, I used to just grab the start window and bring it down and size it so that it was equal to that, and then I just hit OK, and that would do it. But one of the community members showed me a cooler trick. He said, just do this, Daniel. Open up that second window, and let's say you were zooming up to this upper section. Just highlight the end section, the part that you want it to stay on, switch over to crop, click on crop. I gotta make sure it's highlighted. Highlight the end. So that's highlighted, it's green. Switch over to crop. It's not doing it for me now because I just ruined it, right? Now that I've said it has to do it, it's not doing it on me. So it did do this. I don't know why it's glitching on me today, but if you click on that end section, and then you actually apply that. You can apply that crop by just clicking on the end section, highlighting it, and switching to crop, and it'll stay there. I don't know why. I might have the older version installed. It may not actually be updated, but it'll actually hold that crop up there. If you have the newest version, it'll do that just by switching to crop, and it'll actually apply it. So that's something I want to make sure you guys are aware of. It was a lot easier than having to match those two sections together that I used to always do, where I would have to shrink the screen down and make it match. That was a total pain in the butt. So now you just have to take that last screen, highlight it, click on crop so that it switches to the crop. It'll hold that crop and apply it to your footage. Of course, when I try to show you in Filmora, it acts up on me, right? Again, it is on my older, slower computer, so sometimes it has attitude. But that's a really cool thing to do. I want to quickly look at, I do have a questionnaire down below. And I want to talk to you guys. If you have any questions, please go down to the questionnaire down below and ask any questions in that questionnaire so that I don't miss them. Sometimes when I'm screen jumping, I miss things that you guys have said in the chat. But I'm going to start right off with the questions we got there. The very first question is from my friend Leela from YouTube, who asks, "What's your favorite way to create bins in Filmora?" Okay, listen, Leela, you got to lay off me with the bin thing. All right, I was kidding. So what she's talking about is actually she uses Adobe Premiere Pro, and what happens is they use a system of bins, which is the way you can organize your content, so that you don't just have a screen full of files. But that's a great thing to talk about here. It's really a good question. What's the best way to create bins in Filmora? She's serious. Let me share my screen. A whole screen capture right here. This is the Filmora screen. Let me go to the upper left where you can see it a little bit better in this upper left corner up here, right? So if you look, my mouse isn't capturing again today either, but you'll see it highlight. If you look, there is the ability down at the bottom here of this open panel. There is a folder icon, and if you click on that, you can see it saying add a new folder. If you click on that, it actually adds a new folder, and you can type in a name. You can say, like, Daniel's, you don't have to name it Daniel's, just in my honor. But Daniel's images, let's say. Let's say I used a lot of images for this particular project. And that creates a folder that allows me to put all my images into one folder and then switch back to another folder that I can rename this one as well. If I right click on it and hit rename, I could call that my video footage. And here I would have my video footage, Daniel's images, and I could switch back and forth so they don't have this massive screen of 9 million things all onto one screen. They're put into separate folders, or as Leela would call them, bins, because we like bins. Bins is cool. But how cool is that, right? That makes it really simple. And you can save all that stuff into folders so that they make a ton of sense to organize your project. Having your project organized is really helpful. And you can even save these folders so that you can come back and start a new project with some preset stuff in it. Like I always use the same kind of end screen element where I drop in you guys have seen it a million times, like check out this next video here. So that kind of stuff is super important, where you can have stuff that you use very frequently, your intros. If you've built an entire intro video section, man, that's so much easier to just have it in a folder and then just open up a project and have all those basic elements that you always use in every video is right there. Super, super cool. Love that. That's one of my favorite things to do. Organize, keep them organized. Let me look at another question I have over here. Thank you, Leela, for that wonderful question. You are my hero. The next question I have on the list here. Has Filmora or will Filmora up the dB levels from 6 dB? Here's an interesting question. I love this question. Let me show you something, okay? This is one of the things, and if you don't understand what this question means, I'll explain it to you. Let me go back to the whole screen capture. One of the things that you will see is that Filmora, when you're looking at the audio. So here I have a video track with audio attached. If I right click on it, if I double left click on it, it opens up the options in the upper left. And if I click on the audio tab, it now has the ability to change different things about that audio. Let me close in a little quicker so you can see what I'm looking at. There you go. Now it's zoomed in a little. So here's the features for Filmora's audio on this track that I've highlighted. And if you see, if I grab this lever and crank it all the way up, underneath that, it only says 6 dB. That's the most we can jack up the volume for that particular clip. And if you actually, let me zoom back out to the whole screen capture. If you actually look, I've segmented this first part of this this track right here. You can see the audio wave file actually get bigger and smaller. The bigger it is, the louder I've made it. The smaller it is, the quieter I've made it. But here it is. He's asking, I wish we could get more than 6 dB, because sometimes that's not enough. Here's something you need to pay attention to. So that's what you can do to the original track. You can add 6 dB. But if you go over to the right, just underneath your preview screen, there's this sort of, it looks like a bunch of lines with a musical note. That is your mixing control. This is your audio mixer. So if you click on that, like I said, it's just under your preview here, right over here. You'll see that little 4 lines, what looks like a musical clef next to it. Now I can say in this track, I can actually not only add 6 dB to the track, but I can add another 6 dB right here in the individual channel. And beyond that, I can go to the master and add another 6 dB. Okay? So I could crank the master and go, okay, I really need these tracks to be louder, but I don't want to crank everything else up. So what I'll do is I'll take this other track that's not even using right now, but if this was another track, I could turn that down to, I can actually type it in minus 6 dB. And what it does is I can turn everything down by 6 dB. That allows me to take that track that's not loud enough. I've added volume in the track itself. When I clicked on the track, I've added another 6 dB here in video 1, which is the audio from this section. And then I don't have anything in the audio file underneath. But the video section, that turns up the audio for that track. And I've added 6 dB overall. So that will crank, if I hit OK, that will crank the overall volume here. So when I get to that point, you're going to see that I've solved that issue. It's like, oh, well, now instead of just 6 dB, you've picked up like 18 dB, which is a fairly good amount of volume to bring a track up. So there's a great way to add a lot more volume to a track than just that 6 dB. All right, I hope that answered the question for you. Let me take a look at what the other questions are. What are you guys talking about? Super Dave. Hey, Daniel, a.k.a. Dr. Filmora. Good to see you, Dave. Yes, Dave was the one who used to call me Mr. Filmora. And I insisted that with the amount of time I had spent at Filmora University, that I be called Dr. Filmora. I deserved at least that. And he has ever since. So thank you. I appreciate that. One other thing I want to talk about. Let's see over here. Let's see. This next question. Can you show how to make Harry Potter spells in Filmora, like when the Death Eaters fly in the sky from a black cloud? I will. It's actually on my list. That is actually one of the things that's on my list. I will do another Harry Potter thing. I actually did one. I did the Cloak of Invisibility. The title wasn't, the video wasn't labeled that, but I actually showed how to do the Cloak of Invisibility. But I will do. You're not the first person to ask. I will do another Harry Potter spellcasting one because people have asked, and it seems pretty cool. I'd like to see if I can actually pull that off. So that's on my list. The next question is, hi, Daniel, are there any other free websites other than Pixabay.com for some nice green blue screen footages for the chroma key that you'd recommend? Yes, there are. Now, you know that I always recommend going to Filmstocks first, because Filmstocks has a bunch of free stuff like smokes and explosions, really, really cool stuff that you can get. Some of it ends up being free, some of it's paid. I do have links in all my videos on Filmora and down in the description of this particular live stream that shows how you can get 20% off of any of the Filmora products, Filmstocks, any of the video editors, Filmora Pro, Filmora 9, and you have no long-term commitment. You can go in for a month. You can buy like a month of Filmstocks, use anything on there for a month, and it's like $8 with the discount. It's pretty cheap, and I've used that before. But there's also Pexels, Pexels.com is good. More limited than Pixabay.com, but good. And one of the ones that one of our community members pointed out that he likes is one that's a mix. It's some free, some paid, and it's called, I just spit in my coffee. It's called productioncrate.com. When you talk too fast, sometimes you spit. It happens. I don't know if that added any flavor. So productioncrate, one word, .com. Production, C-R-A-T-E. Check that out. They've got a bunch of free stuff there. So if you're on a really limited budget, you do have to pick through it a bit to see what's free and what's not. But it's got a lot of cool stuff in there, like all kinds of laser blasts and things and other footage that you can get that's royalty free. And usually it's either you can use the footage completely, or you might have to put a link in your description giving the creator credit for that. Make sure that if there is permissions with anything that you use, even on YouTube Audio Library, if you use any music or any sound effects from there, sometimes they do require permissions where you just give a credit down in your description of your video. Make sure you do that. You never want to get in trouble. Greetings from Texas, Axonar Comics. Good to see you, my friend. You've always been around, and I do notice your presence, so shout out to you, my friend. I appreciate the support. Let me go down a little bit here. Let me see some of these other these individual questions. Let's see. Can you raise? My PC is too bad for Filmora Pro, and I want keyframes. What should I do? Well, I hate to say it, but this is one of the limitations that we run into when we want our software to do a lot for us, you have to understand that Filmora, like any other video editor, it requires resources, right? It does. The reason that Filmora 9 is so great is it doesn't require a ton of system resources. And a lot of people have said to me, hey, I would really love it if Filmora 9 would add things like, more keyframing would be killer. Or if they had motion tracking. We've all said that, right? If you could do motion tracking and masking and stuff. The problem with that is that it would use up more system resources. So a lot of people have a slightly older computer or the existing tech specs that you need, system requirements to run Filmora, would probably have to be upped. Right now, it's like you can find it by typing Filmora tech specs into Google, and it'll show you it's like an i3 you have to have. You have to have, I think, 4 gigs of RAM to run anything up to HD, I think requires. There's a switch at that point. But they list all the specs, and I quote it a lot in the comments section when people ask. But the more you want your video editor to do, the more system resources it uses up. So it's really tricky. The only way around it is really to try to have a stronger computer. And I want to tell you, there's ways around that. I built my own 4K editing computer. It can edit 4K video, no problem. And I built the whole thing for under $900. And I was thinking about doing a video on that and just showing how easy it is to put a computer together, because they charge so much for computers nowadays. I'm a PC guy, and they're really affordable. I actually have a refurbished HP laptop I run that's an i5. It meets all the specs for running Filmora 9. And I think I bought that refurbished for a little over $200. That was like $220. So if you keep an eye out, a lot of times you can find deals. Just make sure you check out the Filmora tech specs and know what Filmora needs to run at a minimum. The more you can exceed those specs, the better off your computer will run, especially when you ask it to do a lot of things. But that's the best thing to do, is invest in a strong system. That'll run the software to the best of its capability. Ed, good to see you, my man. You're saying I should probably show how to make those, put a computer together. They're so simple. It's so plug and play. I really should. It's on my list. I actually filmed when I put my other one together, but I didn't love the footage, and I had 100 things going on, and I never did it. But I will. I think it's worth it. I think when I see people having to spend, $1,800, $2,000, $2,500 to have a computer that will hopefully run the software, when you can get right out there and you can do it for, $800 will get you there. It really will. So I'm thinking about adding that to the list of things I want to talk about. Mick Green, good to see you, pal. Another question from the questionnaire was, let's see. How can I play around? Whoop, my form just moved. How can I play around with the audio settings to get more of a professional sound? I like more bass. I know where the settings is. I just don't know how to use it properly. Keep up the great work, Nick. Thank you, Nick. That's a great question. Let me show you. Let me swap over and let me show you Filmora, and let's show you exactly where that stuff is. Whole screen capture. Here we go. All right here. If you right-click on any piece of footage, whether it has audio attached or if it's a separate piece, let me detach this audio. And if you had a separate audio piece, if you double left click on it, it'll open up this audio stream. If it's inside of connected to a piece of video and you double left click on it, it can do the same. You'll open up the tabs, video, audio. Just make sure you're in audio. In the audio here, you'll see, let me go up to the upper left so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm just zoomed into the upper left. You'll see this equalizer setting right here, and it has a drop down. It starts with default, and then it has classic, dance, low bass, sparkle, pop. These are all preset. And if you click on them, it'll just add it, and you don't really visually know what it is. But let me show you the trick to knowing what it is. Scroll all the way down to custom, okay? And hit customize. That'll actually open up this window right here. See, this is the actual equalizer window. And once you get into the equalizer window, you actually have the same options again. You can go back and use a preset like hard rock, and it'll start changing the frequency settings, or low bass. It'll change these. See how it's creating a different curve? Let me explain what this is. These numbers down here represent the frequencies of the spectrum from 31 up to 16K. Now, the ones on the left are your lowest frequencies. The ones on the right are your highest frequencies. So all these lower ones here, those are the bottom end of your sound. So if this was, instead of being all these little lines, if this was sort of knobs on a radio or on a stereo system, the ones down here make up your bass knobs, and the ones up top make up your treble. But you actually have the crossover in the middle. We actually have the mids that control the mids too. And this is a really great feature. A lot of times people will say, like, if you wanted to crank up the bass, I would do something like set a custom setting. This is all flat. This, when you see them all, nothing's been moved, that's flat. If you want to get a little more boom in it, grab some of these, click on some of these lower ones, and bring them up just a bit like this. Give it a little more thump in the bottom, somewhere between that 63 and 500 range, because 125, 250, those are a lot of your big bass sounds. Down in the 31 range is like the kick drum, that big vibrates the sides of your car as your subwoofers are getting exploded. That's the super lows. That's the thump, right? I usually don't crank that up too much. I like low end, but I don't like it when it starts blowing out speakers. When you do add bass, think about adding a little treble to offset up in the top so that it still sparkles. So if you do something like that, add a little few high frequencies. I do this a lot on my voice. I'll record my audio through my microphone and it's not quite sparkly enough, so I'll make it sound better. I'll just tweak it a little bit. And once you change the custom setting here, you just hit OK and it applies it. Another thing you can do is anywhere else, if you click on another piece of footage and hit customize, if you scroll down to the custom setting, it can remember, if you keep that, it'll remember it and store it for other ones. Today it's not doing anything I want, but it'll store those custom settings so that you can pop them back up in another piece of footage later on, which is really cool. One more thing when I'm here, a lot of people ask me like things like, Daniel, how do I do like that? How do I make it sound like I'm on the telephone? You know that telephone voice? Well, a telephone is really easy because a telephone has a very tiny speaker, which means it has very few lows. So you just suck those all out, right? You just go, okay, I got this. I'll take all the lows out. It's a very small mid-rangey speaker, so it tends to have a lot of mid-range. And then the high tends to be clipped off because it's not very bright. It's a very tiny little speaker that's in a phone. So if you want to make your voice sound like a telephone, all you got to do is take the sound and just pull all those lows and highs out and pump up the mids. That'll give you that telephone voice. You hit OK, boom, and it's applied. Nice and easy. Cool way to, play with that audio and do something that make it sound more than it was. I create a lot of effects that way all the time. I'm constantly playing with my EQ. Leela's here. Leela, yes, I answered your question on how to do bins in Filmora. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. What else? What else are you going to ask me? A best place to get a cortado? I don't know either. One of the other things that from the questionnaire here, I don't want to miss anybody's questions today. Really want to focus on what you guys are asking. One of the questions, let me see, individual questions. So let me scroll through here a bit. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. My form is moving slow today. Sometimes my internet is slow. We got through where to get some other free stuff, audio settings, and next is there's a lot of negativity around my niche. The team my channel is focused on is drastically underperforming. I guess you might be a sports channel. I got a great answer about this from Nick Nimmin on Saturday, but really want your take too. I pride myself on keeping content as positive as possible, but right now negative videos in my niche are getting a lot more traction. Do I continue making positive? So this is more of an actual technical term about making content on the platform. I always stay positive, my friend. You know what? Say how negativity does draw a lot of views when you're making content, but I got to tell you, I know it's a little off the Filmora path, but I stay positive in my videos. I stay positive when I talk to people in real life. I stay positive when I'm in my comments section. I think it's so important to have a positive attitude. You can be fun. Anyone who's ever met me knows I'm sarcastic as all get out. But don't be negative. Being positive is just such a good way to go. I think people connect with it. You start getting negative, you're going to draw negative comments. So I would say stick with what stays positive and always give people value in that, and you'll do okay. I think positive is the way to be. That was from Matt Hayes, by the way. Matt, I love you, brother. Thank you for asking that question. Michael at Your Auto Advocate asked, can you raise up the volume 60B? Boom, I did. That one we already covered. 3 ways. My PC is too bad. I got that one. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit here. Why does Filmora sign me out when I'm exporting my video? I have to sign in and start again. That could be an issue. Just with your system getting a little more getting overworked. I'm not saying that's for sure because I don't know what your exact system is, but a lot of times what happens is when you export, it can actually take you out of the software. There is a setting. I'm going to look into that some more because I think there is a few settings in the project settings for export that allow you to. I'm taking a quick peek here before I just speak out of turn. That allow you to have some presets for what happens under performance and editing. That does shut a few things off. I don't think that specifically is one that I'm aware of signing you out. It shouldn't be signing you out. If it continues to do that for no apparent reason, I'll make a note and I'll make sure I talk to Filmora and see if there's something I'm missing there. But don't be afraid to run, put a ticket in with support. A lot of times they're really good at answering the support questions and giving really specific advice to your system as to what might be happening. They're really good. I will say, and one other thing, I'm going to mention that if I didn't say it already, it should have seen at the beginning, is this particular stream is sponsored by the good people at Filmora. A lot of you guys have said a lot of years, you said, man, they should have, Filmora should have you do their videos. They should sponsor you. Well, after a lot of talks and a lot of negotiating, they actually do. So that some of the content you see on my channel actually is sponsored by Filmora, where I get to do the thing that I do, that I've done all along, but they're behind. I'm an actual influencer for Filmora. So what do you know? I don't know why you would hire this guy. I mean, seriously, look at me. If you want me to represent your brand, apparently, don't tell them what I look like. But let me talk about some of these other questions we have here. I'll find out about that. The name of the channel was Holy Crap, I'm Fat. I feel your pain. Emmanuel asked, how can you move an object, a picture or words, across a screen without moving it frame by frame? That's a great question. That's that motion tracking thing that we've talked about. A lot of people want to be able to grab and keyframe and move things by keyframing the video and say, I want it to go from here to here to here to here. The way that Filmora does things, let me share my screen. Let me go, whole screen capture. Boom, boom, you're over there. Let's open this up. So the way that Filmora does motion is if you add something, let me grab a sample color and bring it down over here just as a reference point. I'm going to grab just a black and throw it up here. And I'm going to resize it up here. So if you guys don't know this trick, obviously you just highlight your whatever you want to work with down in your main timeline, make it green, and then it highlights it up top, and you can grab the corners and move it around. In this particular case, if you wanted to make something move a bit, the way you would do that is if you double left click on it, you'll see in the upper left, it says image, color, and then motion. And you have the ability to add motion to that particular thing, no matter how it's sized and located. Like I'm going to add this up down to it, right? That will, let me shrink this down so it's showing what it'll do. That will take that black square, and as I play this, let me make sure my volume's down on this so you guys don't get anything hit with way too much volume on this one. I'm going to kill the master. I cranked everything up earlier. That's all we need is to blow your eardrums out. So that will pop down into screen, and it'll stay there as long as it stays there based on the clip length. And at the end, it'll pull it back up. So you can do things like that. You can arrange that motion in a specific place. You can just decide where the landing point of that feature is going to be. If you wanted something to, let's say, pop up into the lower left corner, you could do one of the popping up motions. There's a bunch of different ones in here. I think there's, and they're in alphabetical order too. So a lot of times you can find them just by finding them alphabetically, like to the right. You can have this one. If I use to the right, it'll pop it into the right. And then can you see what that did there? It started from nowhere, jumped into the right, and then at the end of the segment, it popped it back out. So that's how you do the motion segments. I know sometimes we wish there were easier ways to really keyframe and move things around, but right now that's how Filmora is doing the motion segments, and that's what we have to work with. Maybe someday in the future we'll see some keyframing. Again, we talked about that a little earlier. It is what it is right now. It works. I've been able to do it and get things to move the way I want them to. A lot of times I combine some zooming features with that, and I get things to move in a more spectacular motion, because I not only will have them pop up and in, but I'll also zoom in and have things jump around that way, and that can be a really cool way to get things to move as well. Let me look back at the questions. How you guys doing out there? Falcon's Garage, thanks. All right. I don't know who you said thanks to. If it was me, then you're welcome. If it wasn't, well, you're welcome from them. Next question I got here. Sarah, can I add text animation on Filmora, but not the animation on the program? I mean, other effects on text. Yes. Can I add text animation, but not yes? And that's what I was, but not the text animation on the program. Yes. Let me make sure I'm answering this question correctly, Sarah. What you're asking me is, let me swap over to a whole screen capture, is if you had some text, let me get rid of this other thing. Let's say you click on titles. I'm going to choose, let's say like a lower third. And I'll bring a lower third down here. So right in here, we've got this text that plays. It just says title here. All right. I'm going to lock this lower screen so I don't accidentally move it. But let's start with this text. I'm going to double left click on that text. It opens up the advanced text controls. I can change what it actually says. So I can write the word text. If I click on advanced, this particular one, I don't know if you've noticed this. It has this, sometimes you'll see these extra features like these bars that come with it. A cool thing you should be aware of, if I double click on that, under advanced, you'll see these are both sections. This is the text, is the purple bar at the top, and that weird little line here that you can resize, it's just a sort of added feature, is right here. If you double left click on that and highlight it, and then up at the very top you hit trash can, that's right above, right in the sort of left of center, it will get rid of it, and now that's gone. Now, if you double left click on the text, I know what you're saying about the animations. These decide how these things move, and they're sort of preset text animations. So that's cool that you can get the text to move the way you want. That's one way. But you can also add different types of motions to that text, like by using some of the transition features too. I do that a lot, is I'll transition into them and get them to drop in a slightly different way. If you're asking about just moving it around the screen freely and having it chase, that's that same keyframing that Filmora doesn't really have that feature, but you can use some of the other effects and transitions. A lot of times I'll add, pick whatever it is. Sometimes I'll do like there's an orb twist that I love a lot that I think does a cool thing that you can bring down, and you can add an orb twist to it. Let me stretch this out. And what it'll do is it'll have that come in a slightly different way than it did. I often apply that at a different spot. If you do it with a different track, you can actually have that orb just onto the text. Right there, I'm laying it onto both as a transition. But a lot of times when I'm doing text tracks, you can do it separately. So if you'd gotten rid of all this other stuff, because I think you guys have seen me do this, right? A lot of times I'll create something that's just a track that I bounce. So let's say there's just this text track. I'll have that text come in. Can you see what I'm doing here? Let me make this bigger. Oh, another question while I'm here. I'll get to it too. So there's the text. A lot of times I'll create a text track like this, and I'll add this motion to it. Boom, and it'll jump in. Because I put an orb transition. I'll export this. That's what I call a bounce. You guys have heard me say bounce. I'll bounce it, send it out in high resolution, and bring it back in. And then I'll use the chroma key feature to just get rid of the black. Click on the black, get rid of it. And now my text has a new motion that it didn't have just on the presets, because I added a neat transition motion to it. And that's really kind of cool too. It's a good way to do it. One other thing, someone had asked me recently, how do I make the text bigger? I feel like every time I'm working with the text, I'll get this as big as I can, right? Like to here, and it doesn't get big enough. Well, one thing I want to talk about is the text is going to be constrained by the size of the preset box. So one, you can increase the size of the font in the upper left. Let me make sure I'm showing that upper left screen. So here's that font right here. You can drop down and go up to 150, but you can actually type in a higher font size. I can type in 200 and enter that, and it'll increase. Now, let me scroll back out here. Let me get the whole screen. If you notice, it didn't seem to change the text size, font size too much, even though I put in 200. But it's being constrained by the size of this box. So to get the full effect of that larger font that I put in, you actually have to stretch the box, right? You actually have to move this box, stretch it out so that you get the full effect. Now you see how much bigger that text is? So I could put, I don't know what the limit is. Let me try. I know there is a limit it stops. Let me try 250 and see if it'll do it. It'll do 250. I think there is a limit it hits, but you can get that huge font. Some people have been saying, man, I haven't been able to get that huge font I like in the middle of my screen. And it's because they increase the font size, but the box here up in the upper right is limited down to this constraint. And no matter what you type in, it only gets that big. So be sure to go bigger font and stretch the box, stretch that out. Then you can place it wherever you want by left clicking and dragging it around where you want. I hope that made sense. Yes. I think it did. I felt like it made sense to me. Because that's a question I get a lot. Respect official. Hi from India, Daniel. Hey, hi from New England. Nice to see you, my friend. Thank you for stopping by. Is trying to say, oh, did I miss it, Susie? Was that like the 15th hi? Well, hi. There's your hi. I said hi. Let me get to one of the other questions that I've got a bunch in here. I want to make sure I get through these. Let's see. Ted Matos, if you've tried other editors, what finally sold you on Filmora versus the other non-NLEs, which are the also non-destructive editors, non-linear editing? I'll tell you, I like Filmora's workflow. It's really easy to use because it's not a heavy learning curve, which I think anything you want to use, find the tool that's right for you and use that tool. For me, Filmora 9 became my daily driver. I can move really fast in it. It does all of the things that I need it to do for the kind of content I create. I create a lot of tutorials, so it works really well. The built-in screen recorder in Filmora is fantastic. It does a great job of just click a button, set the settings, and you can capture your screen. So I do a lot of my voiceovers and stuff like that. You can even add your webcam. You could, if you're a gamer. Really, really great built-in feature that comes right with Filmora. So that's one of the things that I love about it. But I found that most of the things that I want to do by just using my head, I can make those happen. Yes, we did. You like that one? That was a pretty fun one, huh, Leela? I brought my son out for that one. Brought him out of retirement for one video. So that's the main thing that sold me. Like someone like Lilo who uses, she uses Adobe. One of my friends, Jay Littman, uses DaVinci Resolve. I always say use the software that's right for you. But all of those other software have different features. They'll have different system resource requirements. I think that probably Lito would be the first to tell you that, like Adobe, you've got to have a pretty solid setup, especially if you're going to do a lot of different edits in Adobe, because it requires a lot out of your computer. And if you've got a solid computer, it's a great software. But it is a steeper learning curve. And for what it did, I didn't need it to do that for what the kind of content I was making. And Filmora has always been a real natural fit. I've made stuff that has gone on to do really well. I mean, if I've got videos that have they're well over 250,000 views using Filmora. So it does the thing that I needed to do. And it edits in 4K. I don't usually do 4K. I tend to do 1080p. But that's one of those things that people are always asking. Can I edit in 4K? Can I, a lot of the built-in transitions are really easy too, because those transitions in a lot of other software, you have to keyframe them in to get the text to move a certain way. So Filmora drops a lot of that stuff at your hand, so you can just click, boom, get it to move, and you're on to the next thing. With me, I really have to be able to keep a steady workflow and move videos and get them out as quickly as possible. That's the thing that really sold me on it. And I think it sells a lot of you too. I think a lot of people out there, you guys in the community, Filmora uses because you do the same thing. It's like, you love it. It's easy. It runs pretty well. Knock on wood, most of the time it has its glitches. But it's a really easy learning curve, and it gives you quite a bit of functionality, considering that's its whole goal. It's not trying to be DaVinci. It's not trying to be Adobe. It knows those softwares occupy a certain space. Filmora 9 is something, get the job done really quick, really easy, solid, quality outputs, and you get to still enjoy some time with your family, supposedly. Not that I ever do. I don't have the time for anything lately. I hope that answered the question. Next question, Sergioni. I have an issue with live scenery when trying to use the ghost effect. It blurs the over and underlays. How do I fix this? The ghost effect. I want to make sure I did a video on the ghost effect, and I want to make sure that's not an actual feature in Filmora. One thing I want to point out is let me see if I can answer this the best way I know how. Because there's a thing that you do have to be aware of when you're using some of the effects that you layer in. So let me share my screen for a second, and let me show you this. If you are, okay, let me get all of this junk out of here. Let's go back to media. Let's bring down this piece of footage, just a chunk of it. I only need a small piece. Okay, so this is piece. Let's say I wanted to do something to this. If I had multiple pieces of footage, let me get rid of some of this extra. So if I was multiple layers, right, and I wanted to add an effect. He said ghost. That could have been, I'm going to guess, maybe he was using blur. That's possible. If he used a blur effect and he brought it down, if you bring any of these effects and drop it into a track, I just dropped it there. Let me see if I can get it to drop above. If you drop it into a track above, see how I'm into a separate track? If you do something like this, it's going to affect everything below, everything that's showing through right here. If I have these transparencies set differently, or maybe this particular second footage here, like I talked about, only occupied a smaller section of the screen. Maybe it was like my face in the corner doing something. If you're adding a blur or ghost or anything like that, if you lay any of these effects on top, it's going to affect everything below. If you wanted to affect just the specific track you're working with, drop that right onto the track, okay? And that can help. That can help just deal with. I'm sorry, let me get it into it. If I can. This is a bad example I'm using. Give me 1 second. What that can do is, with the especially, let me use it in a better scenario. Let me see which one, because blur is probably not the one. Like bokeh, anything like that. If you bring them down, lay them. See how that laid into the track? Because you could lay above the track, which would affect everything below it, or you can bring it onto the track. There, it's splitting it. Let me take it back out. But if you first grab at any one of these effects and bring them down, you can lay them right on. See how the whole track turns white? And that'll lay it into that specific track. So that's something important that you want to pay attention to, the difference between adding any kind of effect to everything on your project in an upper track, or actually laying it onto that particular piece of footage so that it's just affecting that particular piece of footage. Sometimes people make that mistake, and it's like, it's not doing what I want, especially with masking. If you're doing a masking thing, make sure you drop your masks onto the piece of footage that you're actually working with. That's super important. Let me see. Next question. What do we got here? I'm trying to move quickly, make sure I can get to all you guys. This one came in from, let me go forward here, from Jelly Plant. You are my favorite YouTuber. Can you mask in Filmora 9? That's so funny. We were just talking about masking. Yes, you can. Let me show you really quickly how to do that. I think I covered this in another live stream, but it's so fast. Let me just show you really quickly, because it is important how to mask. If you want to mask, if you have two pieces of footage here, I've got one on top of each other, one in the upper section, one in the lower. If you go to, let me clear this out. If you're in the effects tab in the upper left, if you scroll down at the very bottom, it says Utilities 9. If you click on Utilities, you will see the image mask. Click on that, drag it down onto the piece of footage you want to mask. In this case, I have shrunk my footage in the upper right. Let me expand it a bit. As you can see, it's also still got the bokeh blur on it I just put before, but that just put a circular mask on that. And it's allowing that only to be a circle. If you want to change the type of mask, what you need to do is double left click on your footage again and go to the video tab in the upper left, and you will see, let me go the upper left. So you can see what I'm talking about. In the upper left, you see this is the video tab, audio color. I double left click on the footage with the mask on it. And at the very bottom, you'll see video effects. That has a check because it recognizes I added a bokeh blur, which is still on it, and it added the image mask. Now I can actually get rid of the effects from here as well. If you ever put an effect on something and you're like, oh man, I want to get that off, you can click the X and you can get rid of that. I've now gotten rid of the bokeh blur. Now the image mask is here. I can click the drop down. It presets. I'm scrolling to this circle, but you can do anything you want. I was doing the most recent video where I was pretending to talk to myself in the mirror, and I did this masking effects. I chose this left and right one. It's harder to see because, let me show the whole screen, because these two pieces of footage are pretty identical. But this is a left and right mask, and you can control the X. You'll see the kind of moving left and right. I'm now masking and controlling where that mask point is. The X moves left and right on that. And you can use whatever shape you want. They have a whole bunch of shapes that you can use. So that's how you do the masking in Filmora 9. It used to be called the power tool in Filmora 8, and a lot of people got used to the power tool. Like, where's all the power tools? I used to right click and I had all these options. It's just up under the effects, scroll down on the left, utilities, 9, mask, drop it onto your track. Make sure you mask the track by dropping it onto the piece of footage you want to mask, not in the track above it, or it'll mask everything. And you'll go, now I'm not seeing what I want. It's blocking everything. So that's super important. Who else do we have? Kathy Fed. Good to see you, Kathy. How you doing? Kathy just had a baby not too long ago. Congratulations, by the way. Who else we got in here? Alzine Bass. Nice to see you, my friend. I have more questions. I'm trying to get through these questions. We get so many. The next question I have is, let's see. Let me go here. The Spiritual Center. Hi, Daniel. I'm struggling with green screen and editing videos. Lots of bits being cut out. The problem when I export to my computer, a 7-minute video took over 24 hours to export to my laptop, Lenovo i7 processor. Any tips? Is it the green screen causing the lag, or is it many edits in one video? It's both. But I want to show you a couple things. I want to make sure you know. Yes, if you have an i7, that should be plenty fast to do what you need it to do. But it depends, because it is a laptop, it may not have the amount of RAM to support it. You want to do at least, I like to see 8 gigs of RAM at least on your processor to support it. And Filmora really wants a separate GPU, a separate graphics card. And a lot of times the laptops have integrated graphics cards right into the processor, and it's just that one processor is forced to try to do so much. But you should be able to get away with green screen and have it work out pretty well. But one thing I want to make sure that you do, and let me just show you, I'm going to share my screen again so that I can show you some things that I want to make sure that you know about how to keep the lag down. If you have a piece of footage, if you're working on your project, up in the upper left, let me show you the upper left capture so we can in a little bit closer. Okay, cool. Up in the upper left, you see it says File. Click on File, scroll down to Preferences. And in the Preferences window, it's got all these tabs. The very last tab says Performance. Right now, I don't have this enabled, but you can enable your hardware acceleration, your acceleration for decoding, and you can also set background render, so it'll actually render every 5 seconds or so you don't have to sit there and wait. I leave that off. But right now, one of the reasons probably this computer's running slow is I had the GPU acceleration off. One thing I will tell you, if you turn it on in the middle of a project and you hit OK, it's going to tell you it'll only take effect after the reboot happens. So you'd have to shut this down, reboot it, pull it back up to get that effect, to get that happening. Also, when you export, let me just say here, on the export settings, let me make sure you can see everything. Center screen capture. There, here's the export, right? So when I go to export, some people export right up to YouTube a lot. So they'll click on one of these top ones, like go right to YouTube. I suggest not really doing that, especially for YouTube. YouTube is not a storage center. They don't guarantee that if they lose any of your content that they can get it back. So you always want copies of the stuff you've worked so hard on. So I always save locally. So I use the upper section, the first tab, save locally to my computer. And then I just pick a file where I want it to go. I say that's where I want it to go. But when you do your settings, let me show you right here. Down on the bottom, see this? Enable GPU accelerated video encoding. Make sure that's clicked as well. That one right at the very bottom there, that little at the very bottom, enable GPU. That will make sure that you're encoding your video as fast as possible using your system to the highest capacity that it can. Up in here, a lot of people have asked me about how to set your settings. I always, make sure that you're using the right resolution, the right frame rate. Bit rate's really important. It defaults to about 8,000 kbps, which is really kind of compressed. I always switch to custom, and I tend to export somewhere around 40,000, 50,000 kilobytes per second. It's a much stronger, cleaner, crisper bit rate than the 8,000. YouTube's going to compress it anyway. Let's not have it do it for us. And I also tend to always film in 60 frames per second. It's a crisper frame rate. And then down below in your audio, always make sure that you're not going with the standard 192 kilobytes per second. I get to at least 320. It's just a better, cleaner audio signal. It's going to use up a little more system resources to export at those resolutions and bit rates, but you're going to get a cleaner product at the end. And if you're exporting and you're going to YouTube, it takes longer than doing it locally. So if you export everything locally, so that it's on your computer. It'll do that faster. And then once you have your final product, because it's just one video file, it's not Filmora having to do all the edits and upload it to YouTube at the same time and suffering through YouTube's limitations. Then once you have it on your computer, you can pop it up to YouTube. You have the backup. It pops up to YouTube a lot faster. And that's a super quick way to sort of have a backup, make things move faster, not deal with some of the lag issues that you have, trying to do all that at once, editing, doing the green screen, and exporting up to YouTube. I know a lot of people like to go right to YouTube. I always recommend keeping a backup copy. Super, super important. If, God forbid, your channel ever, it got hit somehow and you lost all your content, you'd be gone. You'd have no way to repopulate that content. So really important. Tamil Peacock. Hi, brother. Good to see you, my friend. Let me get back to the questions. I want to make sure I get through as many of these as possible. Let me see. Number 19. Shaquille, how to scribble animation effect in Filmora. People have been asking about that scribble, and I did one. There's a video on my homepage. If you go onto my channel and search scribble effect, I did do the scribble, show you how to draw on screen. But a lot of people want to know how to do the Adobe version, which is sort of tracing and moving with a person. They actually kind of outline them. That's an effect that, again, requires some motion tracking, and Filmora does not have that feature. So you can draw on your screen, you can scribble. I showed how to do that. But if you wanted to track along with a person, you have to do it frame by frame individually and move it yourself. Next question I have here. I hope that answered that question. Yeah, Ed, 100%. I would rather save it to my system than upload to YouTube. 100%. I can't tell you how many times an upload has failed. And you don't have, if your system crashes in the middle of something, you don't have it. It's so much better to always have the final file saved somewhere. So God forbid, on an external drive. So that if something ever happens, you have your content. A lot of times people will come to me and say like, hey, do you mind if I, use a piece of your content in a collab I want to do, or someone will want it for, Filmora has used some of my content on their channel. And it's real easy for me to go, yeah, no problem. I'll actually upload the original file to Dropbox or one of those other storage places, Gmail, Google Drive, so that they can just grab it and they can use it, and it's all the highest resolution, not dumped down from being compressed by YouTube. I'm here. Thanks for all you do. All right, transplant helper. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad it's been helpful. Ed was just asking, will Filmora ever have motion tracking? I talked about that a minute ago. We'll see. It's going to use a lot of system resources. They've been asked about it a lot. I know it's on their mind. But let's see what they do. Let me jump to this next question I've got here. I'm going to make sure I didn't miss anything. Let's see. Scrap and Pallet Man. Love you, brother. While exporting, Filmora always defaults to 25 frames per second. Is a way that I can change the setting where it's always at 60. It's annoying when I've got... I wish there was a better answer here, my friend. The way I've done it is I actually have a preset Filmora blank that I use. It's my preset. It has my files that I always use over and over again, and I have it labeled like my starting point or whatever I've named it, and it's already saved, and it's just a blank Filmora file that has files in it that have like my intro, my end screen elements, things like that. It has a preset project settings so that it's already set for 60 frames per second. It's set for the right bit rate that I like for both audio and the right resolutions that I want for video and audio. And it has a preset export. Filmora will remember your export settings from a project. Though from a blank, I don't know. I haven't been able to do that either yet. I'm not saying that you can't, but I haven't been able to do it either. If someone else knows something different, please tell us. But I do have a blank template that I start with every time. So when I open up Filmora, I don't open it up blank. I open it up as Daniel's starting point. And it has nothing, no files in it, except for the very pieces that I always use and the preset settings that I like to use most commonly. And there I go. It's giving me my jumping off point. Let's see. I am Hopfrog. You are Hopfrog. Nice to meet you, Hopfrog. This is extremely helpful. I was uploading to YouTube directly and it had crashing issues. Yeah, definitely, my friend. If you're asking Filmora to do so many things at once, you're asking your system to do so many things at once that when you ask anything to do a lot of things, if you ask me to do a lot of things, I perform poorly. So if you can condense that down and just have it, save it locally, you'll have the copy, upload later, so much better. Another thing I want to mention, I talked about this, we're talking about different softwares the other day. When you bring in, be careful where you put your files too. if you bring your files in and you put them on your computer, some people like to use external drives and they'll put their files on an external drive. I do that too. I save things to an external drive, but while I'm working with the footage, I bring it right into my computer. I'll often lay it right on my desktop. What you don't want to be doing is drawing files through like a USB cable to an external drive somewhere else that might be slower for Filmora to grab that information and bring to Filmora and use and juggle back and forth. If you can have it right within the system itself while you're editing, and then save all those files later, and just export them or send them over to your backup files on an external hard drive, that's great. But try to keep things within your system while you're working on it, because nothing is ever going to be faster than if you work on your project with the files being right in the system you're working on, as opposed to something through a USB or a Thunderbolt cable, you name this, so many Firewires or whatever, USB 3. You try to keep those all right in your computer, so you start there. That's the fastest. Think of it like the length of information chain it has to go to get that stuff and work with it. Good question though, great question. Let's see, what do we got next? Do you have to edit your videos prior to placing them into split screen, or can you edit videos in split? No, you can edit in split screen. If you bring separate pieces up, that split screen feature, I'm going to do a video on that. You can still work with them inside of that split screen. All it does is it locates where they are in the preview window. So you can do whatever you want along the way. Let's see. Next question. Am I missing anything in the chat, you guys? That's a great name for a channel, by the way. Holy crap, I'm fat. That makes me laugh every time I read that. Is it possible to add transitions to text? I actually just earlier showed that in the replay. Watch again. Yes, you can add transitions to text. I do it all the time. If you wanted to apply just to the text, I showed how you can export and bring it back in and have it just on the text and create different motions with the text. But absolutely you can. Yeah, check his channel. Thank you for the call out. This bite's for you. I appreciate that. I have a lot of stuff on my channel. A lot of times when you guys will ask me questions in the comments section, I always try to take the time to locate the video that might answer the question and send you that as a link so that you can get the answer with a little more detail than me just trying to do it in the comments section. Or sometimes in the live streams I move pretty quick too. So if I have a video on it, I really try to cover subjects like that. And always, guys, I love when you guys ask me stuff in the comments. Some of those suggestions are great. If I get enough people asking the same question, I know to make a video on that. I know it's something that's important to a lot of you, and if the research shows me that's something that the target audience wants, those are the videos I tend to make. When you guys, sometimes I get really obscure ones, and unfortunately I can't make every video, but the ones that it really seems to serve the largest amount of people, those are the videos I tend to make first. Or something that's so cool that it's like, oh, I got to show them this. This is just awesome. Let's see. Next question here. Where am I at? Dun, 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 dun. We're getting near the end here. From Jeremy. Daniel, hey, have you ever made a stinger transition in Filmora? Someone asked me about that. That's an interesting stinger transition. I won't get too far into it. It's on my list of videos to potentially make and show how to do that. That is one. Keep an eye out. That one you might be seeing sooner than later. Virgil, how can I stitch several pieces of media together so I can apply a color adjustments contrast to the whole project before I export? That's a great question. It's really hard to do some of that because of the way that Filmora works. It's stitching, right? He's asking, can I just make two pieces of video footage, one, and then I can just apply the effect to them. You can't specifically do that, but I want to show you something else. I want to show you something else that you can do that kind of works pretty good. Let me share my screen over here. Well, there's one thing you can do is bounce. You know, obviously you can bounce your footage and then correct it after or add things after. But another thing that you can do is whenever you have multiple pieces of footage, if you have something applied to this first piece of footage, if you right click on it, opens up drop this menu here. You can copy the effects from it, click on your next piece of footage, right click, and then you can paste that effect, and it'll apply the effects that you've added to the first piece of footage onto the next piece of footage. And that's a pretty quick way to get what you've done onto other pieces of footage right within your project. I try to think about that. A big part of when you're creating content with Filmora especially is think about your process. You want to know, hey, if I'm going to color correct the footage, Like, do that first. Don't chop up your footage all over the place and then go to color correct, because you'll have 9 million pieces of footage that you have to color correct, instead of just having it all like, let me do it first. Let me get the color right. Then I can chop it up and I know the color was right for all of the footage and I don't have to do it individually. With an Irish twist. I have no idea what you guys are talking about over there, but that's hysterical. Just randomly see with an Irish twist, which is exactly how I edit my footage, always with an Irish twist. Top of the morning. So, let me see. What other questions we have in here? Boom. Oh, we're getting through these good. Awesome. Sim Life. Hey, Big D. Big D. Does Filmora also have a good way to record video for both game and face shot at the same time? Yes. Yes, it does. Let me show you how to do that as well. Whole screen capture. Let me go over here. If you are in Filmora and you are on the main media file, right? In the, let me go, I'm going to zoom into the upper left. If you see here, there's a record drop down. It's right here. So next to your import, that's where you'd usually import the files you're going to use. But to the right of that, it says record, and you can record PC screen. So if you select PC screen, what that does, it will open up Filmora's screen recorder. I'm going to shrink this down for now. And it's now framing this whole shot. And this is where you can, in the options, there's this little gear over to the right. I'm scrolled so far out. Let me give you the whole screen. There you go. Sorry. This is what pops up when you open up the screen recorder. And that big red button is what's going to start the screen recorder. Now you have the option to turn on a microphone, turn on the speakers so you're capturing sound, or turn them both off, whatever you want to capture. And then this little gear icon in the lower right corner, that sets your frame rate. You can get all the way up to 60 frames per second. You can set your quality. It's good, better, best. You can add the mouse clicks with a circle. You can actually have a mouse sound. But down at the very bottom, it says record the camera on the camera stream. So you can actually incorporate your webcam, position it, record that, and it'll put it down into the corner like if you're doing gameplay, just by clicking that box and choosing to do that. And it'll give you this box here. I don't have a webcam hooked up, but see that box? If I had a webcam hooked up, I would be able to move that around, expand it, make it whatever I want, and it'll add that to the stream. Kind of cool, right? So that's the simplest way to do it. I love Filmora's webcam film capturing, screen capturing options. I think that they're bar none some of the best out there, built into an editor. It's just click, point, go. It just goes. It does exactly what I want it to do, and it works really well. It's pretty crisp. Does a nice job. So that's how you can do it. Both, and you can add your microphones, choose what audio you want to hear if you want the gameplay to go along in there at the same time. So yeah, really cool. Let me check the next question. See what we have here. Dun, 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 dun. Let's see. Friedel asks, can you insert new LUTs? No, you cannot. You cannot insert custom LUTs yet. It's something I've been asking about. I've also been asking about inserting custom VSTs. I'd love virtual instruments in there. That would be awesome if we could add in like reverbs and delays and things like that. Compressors, limiters, multi-band compression. You're not the first person to ask that. The question is out there. If I learn more, I will know. But for right now, you can use the LUTs that are preset. But there is some changes coming up in the newest update has some ability. I think we can actually get into some of the After Effects. I'm going to talk more about that when I find out more information. So there you go. That's a really cool thing. Really cool question. More LUTs. I would like to see more LUTs. Currently, they have the preset LUTs, and then your ability, LUTs are just color schemes, so you have the ability to build your own within the advanced color options of Filmora themselves, and then save them. So you can build some and then save them as your own, particular color setting. Friedel from Germany. Can I copy effect to other objects? Yeah, I think I just showed how to do that. Right click, copy effect, pick your next one, paste effect. There you go. You can paste that right over. Aaron Jemison. How do you take phone video that is filmed on a phone from portrait to landscape? Good question. Good question. Let me show you how to do that as well. The whole screen. Let's go whole screen over here. Let me pull up Filmora. So up in the upper left, if you bring something in, you have to think about your project setting. So I can do it in reverse because I have some, this is 16:9 right here, which is your typical YouTube layout, 16:9 widescreen. up in the upper left, if you click on File, let me go a little closer so you can see upper left here. In the upper left, I'm clicking on File, and you'll see your project settings. And if you click on project settings, see in this window, it says, let me go to the center just so we have center screen capture and you can see it. It has the settings for what aspect ratio. So 16:9 is what I have the project set to. If I switched it to 9:16 portrait, that would be like your phone being turned upwards. That's sort of the Instagram way to look at footage. It would then change all. See how it up in the upper right? Let me go whole screen. I just changed this project to the other aspect ratio. Now, if I did the opposite, if you had 9:16 and you went up to the project settings and changed the project settings so that the aspect ratio then became 16:9, you'd go the other way with it. And you can do 21:9 cinematic. It's the wider 4:3 standard. 1:1 is the Instagram really square, or set custom sizes too. So some of this to get that cinematic look when you want to do 21:9, that's how you end up filling that screen and you get that more of that black bar effect. So this is where you would change all those. And you want to make sure that on export, you also make sure that you keep the same settings for the aspect ratio and here, your resolution, all of this, so make sure that everything's lined up the way you want it to be. So that it does, so it's still going to give you the clarity you want. In here, I will say, once you switch something that's 9:16 to 16:9, you're not going to see the whole image. So you are going to have to left click down in the main timeline and then stretch it so that it fits the screen the way you want, right? So it fills up the full 9:16. Otherwise, you're going to see black underneath like I'm seeing right here. So keep that in mind. You can't convert 16:9 to 9:16 or vice versa and just expect no cropping. There's going to be cropping. You're going to lose parts of it. So always think about that. Sometimes a lot of people I know, when they film, will actually film the thing they're filming in both ways so that they have their segment that they're working on filmed for things like Instagram and things like YouTube. Even though YouTube does actually support 9:16 the upright way, hardly anybody who turns their phone that way makes me insane. We're widescreen people, right? We're widescreen people. Let's see, what else we got? Let me look at the other questions we have here. How you guys doing in the chat? Oh, you guys are getting along famously. I love that. Maybe someone here will know, can I adjust the volume for the whole project, the video clips at the start of the project? Can you adjust you can adjust the overall, I think I showed that earlier. WooCache, Retro Beast. Yes, you can in the, right underneath your preview window. I showed that earlier. There's a control feature, your mixing channel. It controls the overall project volume of everything. So it brings up your master volume. So you can control all those volumes in there. That's the easiest way to do any kind of overall master volume control. Pixel Man, hello, my friend. I have many effects on an object. Can I transfer this to another object? Yes. The same thing. If you put a bunch of effects on something, right-click on that piece of footage, choose Copy Effect, take your next piece of footage, right-click on that, choose Paste Effect, and it'll paste most of those effects over in most situations. It doesn't always paste transitions, and there's a few that don't show up, but most cases you can grab it and put it right over it, and it'll put it right onto there, so you don't have to keep building it one by one. Make sense? Let's see. Daniel Adam, A-D-A-M-E. Adam. I'm going to say Adam. Daniel Adam. Have you seen the movie Schindler's List? Yes. It was the feel-good hit of the summer. No, it wasn't. It was a great movie, though, Spielberg. If so, is a way to do what they did in that movie, which is filmed in black and white and the little girl's in red, is a way to do that in Filmora 9. That's a masking technique, which, again, you really need intelligent masking features so that you can crop out around a person and have it move as they move. It's really hard to do that. Really hard to do that in Filmora. It's even hard to do that in any specific video editor. Lila would be the first to tell you can do it in Adobe, but you have to keep adjusting frame by frame. There's some intelligent masking that it'll follow, but that's a fairly advanced masking technique. And unfortunately, Filmora right now isn't built for that motion tracking and advanced masking. So no, not specifically. You'd actually have to figure out a way to mask that shot out of Filmora and then bring it back in with a background that you could change, and then do a double layer. Can you mask text? Kathy asks. You can, well, yeah, you can. Text in and of itself, Kathy, I've actually done this on my intros video. You can mask it in the sense that, like, are you asking, can you mask it so that that everything else changes behind it? That's sort of the default for Filmora, is it comes masked. If you lay your text in, it overlays and it doesn't affect the background. But you can export it and bring it back in, and I've done it for intro segments where I brought that back in where it's now, like, say, white on black, and I've eliminated the white and had the motion show through the text so that there was actually the video showing through only on the letters, so it created that mask effect. If you're asking about how to do things like have the text masked behind you, a lot of people have asked that thing. That's an intelligent masking, like if you wanted the words to sort of be behind you as you moved and your body's always sort of covering it as you move. That's an intelligent masking. That's not really a feature that's available right now for Filmora, but keep your eyes open. I want to see what happens in the future when we hear more about motion tracking. Let me see. Next question here. Will there be a replay of this? There most absolutely will. It usually pops up not too long after. Once it's processed, it's up, and I usually leave these up. And if long as people are watching them, I leave them up so that you can reference them and hopefully get answers to questions that you may have put if you weren't around. If you answered, put a question in the questionnaire, but you weren't around to see it. I try to get to all of them, so later on you can come back. And other people who use them as resources who ask the same questions. Heidi, Costume CO. It's actually Costume Co, I think is what we've decided it was, right? Costume Co is correct. Good to see you, my friend. Pixel Ma. Is it possible to add transitions to text? Yes, we covered this. A little back, watch the replay, and I showed exactly how to add those transitions in. SimLife. Hey, Daniel, I'm thankful for your videos. Is there a video recording system? Let me see. Video recording system in Filmora. If so, where is it? How do I do it? I want to record my game and my face at the same time. All right, I just covered that like 15 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago. Watch the replay. I showed exactly how to do that. Great question. That's great for gamers. It's Motex. How do you make motion tracking text in Filmora 9? I just covered this one too. Unfortunately, I don't have it at this moment. But, you know, there are ways to do it. There's some tricks you can do. I might show it. You can do it with a green screen. And a lot of people don't like always using green screen. They want to click a button. They think everything happens. But unfortunately, even in the more advanced editors out there, it's never that easy. It's not like you click a button and suddenly text is masked. You have to spend time actually clipping it out and actually getting things masked properly so the things are doing what you want them to do. So there's effort involved. And there is a bit of a way to do it. Overall, in general, no, there's not a feature. You just click it masks intelligently. But there are some tricks to pull that off, and I might do a video on it because enough of you have asked to how to create that effect. SK's Crappy Catching Adventures. I never say that right the first time. Never, right? Never. What's up, Daniel? Would love some pointers on how to do some speed ramping. I actually have a speed ramping video on my channel that I did in Filmora 8, and sometimes people get a little confused because they're like, it looks a little bit different. It's generally the same. But most of those features are exactly the same. If you, let me share my whole screen for a minute. Let me show you here. Any piece of footage, if you want to do speed ramping, let's say, let me delete this other piece of footage. We got one piece of footage, right? And let's say it's moving along at its speed, and all of a sudden you want it to speed up. What I tell you to do right there is wherever that happens is just slice the footage at that spot, right? And then decide how long, whatever, looking at your footage, what you wanted to do, and then slice again. If that's the section you wanted to speed up, slice that separately, right-click on that piece of footage, and you'll see speed and duration. And this is where you can increase the speed. And you can really preset, if you want it twice, it starts at 1. 2 would be twice as fast, right? 3 would be 3 times as fast. And you can punch in increments, 3.6, whatever speed you want. And what'll happen is, see how that just shrunk that piece of footage? There's a gap there because it sped it up. Now what you can do is just click on the space, hit delete on your keyboard, and it closes it up. But that would make this come to this point and then speed that up. I've changed the whole project settings in this thing right now, so everything looks a little funky. But that's what makes that whole thing speed up and slow down. If you did a slowdown section, I got to warn you. If you do the same thing, and let's say you get to here and you go, okay, Daniel, but at this point, I want it to slow down, right? So you'd say you split at this section and you cut a chunk out that you want to slow down. Be very careful here. If you click on this, to slow it down, whoop, not crop and zoom, you want speed and duration. Let's choose the right option, Daniel. Speed and duration. If you wanted to slow it down, so you go the other way, you'd say, like, let's say 0.5. That would be half the speed. If you click OK, nothing happens. And let me explain why. Because it would need to extend this piece of footage. And what is happening is this other piece is in the way. So if you do a ramping section like that, move your other piece of footage out of the way. And that's when you can right-click, if my button wants to work, speed and duration. And that's when you can try this again on that segment. And let's say 0.5, so only half as fast. And now it'll extend. See how I got that other piece of footage out of the way so it could shoot over? This other one was blocking it. Then you can grab this one again, bring it back in, lock it together, and now this particular footage will be slowed down. The one thing I do want to suggest to you guys, if you're trying any sort of speed ramping, especially if you're going to go faster, if you're going to try to speed, I'm sorry, let me say it again. Especially if you're going to slow it down. If you're going to really do a slow motion thing, slow motion, it really starts getting your footage to look janky. So you want to film at least 60 frames per second. More appropriately would be 120 or higher. So know if you're going to have something that you're going to really slow down. If you slow it down a lot, what happens is if it was only filmed at 25, 30 frames a second, and you cut it in half, now it's down to like 15 frames per second. It starts looking really janky, right? So make sure ahead of time that you film at a higher frame rate so that when you do slow it down, it still looks like buttery smooth, right? And speed ramping does just that. You're just taking a piece of footage, like a skateboarder might be skateboarding and he's coming at normal speed. He flips up and you want it to go slow motion. Take that section where the board's in the air, clip it, and then just slow it down. Stretch the speed and duration out a bit, and then pick it back up where you want him to go his normal speed. Or you can go faster. Sometimes we do really fast in, then slow-mo, right? Like the skateboard example, the guy would come down a ramp really fast. He hits that trick where he pops up, boom, you grab the footage, clip it, and slow down the speed and duration. That gives you that speed ramping effect. And you can do that in a million ways. You've seen guys do it. You've seen people speed ramp. And in Filmora, it's super easy. You just grab the piece, clip it where you want, and change the speed and duration faster or slower. Kind of cool. Another reason I love Filmora, it just makes all that stuff really easy. It's really easy to do it. Let's see. Are there any keyframes in Filmora? I'm a newcomer from HitFilm. There aren't keyframes in the video, but there are keyframes in the audio. I just put out a video 2 weeks ago. Look on my channel, go back two or three videos, and you'll see one that says audio effects. Got a big volume knob on it, and I talked all about how to do the audio keyframing. Did you guys all catch that, the audio keyframing one? I'll show you real quickly just so you know where that is. I think most of you have found it now, and it's one of my favorite things. I love the audio keyframing. Let me go over here. Let me open up this. If you have an audio track, let me get rid of all of this because it's all janked up. Okay, here's a track. Let me, I'm going to detach the audio by right-clicking and hit detach just so you can see it better. So here is, let me see. Here is that detached audio. Let me add a track so you can see it better. Add a track below it, and there, raise it up a little. So here's your track. If you notice, when you click, when you're scrolling along your timeline, on a video track with audio or on an audio track, when you double left click, it opens up this window in the upper left that we're very familiar with, right? Let me show you that. We've seen this a bunch of times. This is where you really control your audio, and you're used to seeing like the fade in, fade out, the pitch shift, the equalizer we talked about. It's even got a denoiser that you can remove some of the background noise. But underneath, there's these little arrows and a dot, right? It's right underneath this fader right here, but at the bottom of the fader, right underneath the numbers, there's an arrow, a dot, and another arrow. Let me scroll out for a second, whole screen capture. If you click on that dot, wherever the playhead is, it'll add a keyframe into your audio. I don't know if you can see it doing it. I might have to scroll down. Let me go over to this open section here, but I'm going to click wherever the playhead is, it adds a keyframe. And those keyframes are great because all those little dots, you can actually grab onto those and you can bring them down, bring them up, and they control the volume from that point. And it'll control from the previous point to the next point. And you can add them in as much as you want. You can delete them. But I do that a lot of times. Like I'll add keyframes into these areas, And what I'll do is now you can grab them and bring them down, or you can actually, if that keyframe is highlighted, which is it actually turns gray, you can use the volume meter in the upper left and dip down the volume for that spot. A lot of times I'll dip the volume down, and then later on I want it to slowly come back in. I just add those keyframes so that it does what I want. And every one of those keyframes is just an information spot where I can adjust. Everywhere I add a keyframe, I can control the volume of that section. And I can go up, down, twist it all around, tweak that audio to get it to do what I want. A lot of times what will happen is I'll be talking, I'll be doing like a tutorial. The music will be playing. I want it to play in the background, but I want it to just be quiet. It comes in a little stronger, and I'll just use a keyframe to dip it down. Really cool way to do that. Nice and simple. Let me see. We're getting near the end of the questions. I'm almost there. I'm doing my best. Peachy's Place. I'm a newbie. How to insert a video clip and shift everything over? I've figured out the ripple delete. I just can't insert. Actually, right now, we used to, there's two ways. The old way we were doing it, which one of our community members showed us, which was really cool, was we used to, if we wanted to add a clip in, let's say I'm going to put a split. Let me get rid of this audio. Hold on a second. Let me get rid of this audio. So you're just looking at the video clip. If you had a split, let me add a splice right here. So this is sliced, and you wanted to add a video clip there. We used to be able, you can put the playhead, I haven't tried it in this version, right where you want it to split, right click on your footage up in the upper left and hit insert, and it just inserted it. This is such a huge piece, but it just stuck it in that spot. But you can see that's what it did. It took that whole piece and dropped it in there. Let me hit Control Z and undo what I just did. So you can insert by clicking on the footage in the upper left, or the new Filmora has allowed us to just bring footage down and drop it at that spot. And let me shrink this so you can see everything. And it did the same thing. See, there's my short piece at the beginning, and there's the long piece I dropped in, and it moved the other one to the back, because that's one of the new features from the newest update. It allows you just to bring it down, drop it in. I love that feature. Love that feature. That's so much easier than some of the ways we had to deal with it before. I hope that answered your question. Let me see. Number 38. Question number 38. Tanya Subotic. Hi, Daniel. You are the best as always. Thank you for your effort and the time to help us. I would like to thank you. I'd like you to give us more information about sample colors, what we can do with them. Thanks in advance. Sample colors. I've done a lot of videos on these. I use them a lot of times to do black inserts at the beginning of a video. If I want to fade to black or fade in from black, I bring them down. In this particular example, let me see. I'll share my screen and show you a real simple thing you can do. Let me transition. A lot of times when I want to add a hue, you guys remember when I did the Marvel intro? You can click on Media, and you scroll down to Sample Colors. And let's say there's let's try the blue. I'm going to bring blue down, and I'm just going to stretch it out. It's now in a track above this track. If you double left click on that blue in the timeline and click on Image up top, you'll see in the upper left it has compositing. That's just under Transform, then Compositing. You can control the compositing and dial this way back. You can change the blending mode on that so that you can make it lighter or darker, so it just pulls it, just how it blends with the background track, if it's just going to pull out the lighter features. Then you can actually use these sample colors to change the look of your footage, to add a blue tint. This is a great way if you're trying to do man, I really wish my footage looked like it was at night. You can change the coloring in the advanced color sections, but you can also bring in a block of blue and actually turn the whole thing blue. You've probably seen this a million times, where they'll make footage look a little more blue to make it feel like it's more at night. Really simple way to do that. A lot of times I use it as another feature too. If I'm doing a tutorial, let me lock this bottom, and let's say I was trying to highlight one section. A lot of times what I'll do is I will grab, let me go to the upper right. Let me see if I can show you in the upper right. Upper right screen capture. That's not quite it. Here. All right, I'm zoomed into the upper right. This is my preview window. Now I double left click on the blue in my timeline and see how it's highlighted this track. There's a checkered line all the way around it, dotted line. A lot of times I'll shrink this down, and during a tutorial, if there's one portion of that tutorial that I'm talking about, I'll use this color to do something like, hey, it may come in, let me shrink this down. I'll have it go like this, where I'll talk about the video and I'll be saying, if you'll notice in the upper right, and then right when I say that, boom, I'll throw in a color over it, and it'll actually highlight that section in blue, and it'll actually help it stick out. And you can use that blue, put it in different, if if you're talking about a different section of your screen, you can say, if you notice in the upper left, or if there's something in your video that you want to just point out, throw a color block over it that's got some transparency, and it's like an instant highlight feature. Really, really cool way to pop out something you really want to bring attention to. That's one of my favorite ways to use the color blocks. There's 1,000 ways, and we could talk about more, but that's a really cool way to use color in your videos to bring them alive. One other thing I want to mention while we're here, I don't think a lot of people know this. This isn't a question. I know I'm running long today, but I want to make sure you guys see this. Let me show you one other thing that I don't think everybody knows you can do. Let me go back to the whole screen capture. Text, you can do this with text and with color alike. I'm going to take the compositing of this so it's a little darker blue. Let me put it over here. If you double left click on your color and you get in the upper left this screen that says transform, compositing, chroma key. You guys are used to these features, but there's a drop shadow effect. And I don't think you guys know this. If you turn that on, can you look in I want you guys to focus your eyes on the upper right preview window and look at that blue square and watch what happens. Boom. It puts a drop shadow. And you can control the opacity of it, how far away it is, how blurred it is. And what's really cool about that is if you want to take you can actually do this with your text too. You can really add some shadow to it. And that really helps makes that object, whether it's text or something else, pop right off the screen and adds a layer of distinction. Try playing with that drop shadow. A lot of people don't even know it exists. They just think, they just don't use it. But you can put it on, pieces of footage. You can put it on your text. You can add the drop shadow. You can blur it out. You can take the blur completely away. Right here, can you see how hard? There, I put a hard drop shadow. You can just put it slightly back a bit and really make something pop. Maybe add just a touch of blur. Like, I just want that to pop off the screen a little bit. Let me go upper right. Let me make sure you can see what I'm talking about here. Can you see what's happening there? See that drop shadow that's just moving in and out? Isn't that cool? That's a great way, nice and simple, to allow your stuff to pop off the screen. That I think a lot of people don't use, or sometimes they don't know it's there, or they do know and they just don't use it enough. Really, really super tool that's easy as pie to use. Questions. I'm looking at the questions. I'm going. I'm doing my best. I'm moving. SimLife, Big D, thank you for helping me. One more question. Can you design a thumbnail in Filmora? Yes, you can. I'm going to do a video on that. And it's as simple as when you use Filmora and you put, I'll get into more detail, but I'll show you really quickly. If you are in, let me screen capture. If you're in Filmora, and let's say what I have here in the upper right, which is horrible, it's just a mess. But what I have in the preview window, let's say I've made something. It's apparently a cat with a blue block, and let's say that I decided to bring down some kind of a caption on it. I wanted to put some text onto this as well. Let me bring that over there, and I made my text and I moved it in the middle of my thumbnail. This is horrible, but you build all these layers, but in the let me screen capture the upper right so you can see what I'm talking about. Upper right screen capture, go. Right below that preview window, you'll see there is the render button, there's a tag button, a microphone button, the mix button, and then, but above this section, you'll see this is where you control your playback quality, and to the right of that is a little camera. See right here? That's where you adjust like the aspect ratios and playback quality of your preview window. But to the right of that, there's a camera. Let me hit media over here. And if you click camera, it instantly takes a picture of what you just made up in your preview window. And it puts it, let me make sure I get the whole screen, and it adds it right into your import window. It becomes part of your project file. So if you build something that's 9:16 and build a thumbnail right here, you just click that button, camera, boom, it adds it in here. And then you can either name it and find it, or you can export it as an individual image. A lot of times when it says snapshot 40, you'll see it saves it into your Filmora image files, and you can just grab it later by just searching snapshot 140 or rename it and find it by that name. But yeah, that's a real easy way to make thumbnails in Filmora. And you can do all that text aligning and use pieces right from your actual video to find the best, like if there's one frame that was killer, you can work with it right in Filmora and do that. I've done that a few times. It works out pretty well. Let me see, another question here. Let's make sure we're covering everything you want to talk about. JPro Gaming 27 asks, hey DP, can you export a video with a transparent background so the live stream behind the video shows while the transition happens? You cannot export a transparent background on a piece of video. But we have gotten around that by taking a piece of video and exporting it just as it is, if it's cropped down in a section, and then bringing it back in and using the chroma key to delete it. If you just put a piece of text into Filmora and wrote a word, put it in the middle of your screen and exported it, it would export whatever color you did the text in. Usually it defaults to white, and it would default to a black background. But you could bring that footage back in and use the chroma key feature to select that black and eliminate it. So by proxy, you can do it, but you have to do a bounce feature where you send it out, bring it back in, and then remove the background. I did that with my subscribe button. I gave away a free animated subscribe feature to everybody to download and use in their own videos. And I have a few videos on how to use it, how to actually get that subscribe button, and how to use it inside of Filmora. If you don't have it, check my channel. I gave away, I have it on my website, free subscribe button, that little bouncy with noise, and it's, pretty cool. But I showed you how to make them as well. I was a little frantic there. I hope that answered your question. No transparent export, but you can do it by bringing it back in and using the chroma key. John Boy Adventures asks, I do a lot of abandoned exploring and wonder what type of translation you suggest. Good question. I don't know. That's not a Filmora question. Really quickly I'll answer and I'll say, use your analytics to see what your target audience looks like. Whoever you're trying to target, that language is where you might want to do the translations into. Most of my stuff, I just do it in English. I have done some translations in Spanish because I do have a few Spanish speaking followers who have asked for that. No one's ever asked for Hindi, though I have a lot of Hindi speakers. There's a lot of dialects in Hindi. I don't know where I would start. Next question. Chicks with Dixon, my favorite channel name. I have to create a unique lower third using specific RGB values. Is there any way Filmora can do this? Much love. Specific RGB values, meaning you have to do it with specific colors. Yes, you're asking me, can I create a lower third text, but be very specific with these? I'm going to say tentatively yes. Let me show you. Let me show you how you can do that. A lot of times it's like very specific to the number. What he's asking is, let's say I have a lower third, right? And in this case, I have this text right here, lower third, that was just whatever I title here, that's down, that I put in there. In the color, there is a drop down, and you have let me see if I can show you the upper left. I want this to make sense so you can see it. If you select, you'll see this is the advanced text options in the upper left, and there's the text color, and if you shoot down, you will see that it gives you the basic palette combinations. But you can choose more, and from more, you see this window? You can actually type in, I'm hoping you can still see it. I think it's in the lower right. You can type in a specific color value next to the HTML down in the lower right. Let me scroll out here so you can see everything. Do you see what I'm saying here? So specific color values, instead of just the preset text color, by scrolling and then seeing these basic colors, click more. And then here you can add custom colors. You can pick from within this window. This color window will let you pick very specific colors. You can control the intensity, how dark and light they are, how vibrant. But if you see as I do that, it actually generates an HTML down below with these color numbers we're used to, right? Hashtag 603, #, whatever. You can actually type in the specific color value and do it that way, so your font color is specific to an exact color that you want to work with. I hope that answered it. I think that answered it. Yeah, I've done that a few times. I don't usually have a ton of really specific colors, but sometimes there are. I'm matching exact colors, so I'll actually have to type them in and go, that's the exact color I need to use for this font. Let me see. Next question. Pixelme, your video for the music keyframes, very funny. Do you have any tips about videos on beat to cut? Picture changes. Oh, to do it on the beat. It's funny. I did one for a different software. I think I did one for different editing software, but I don't have a video right now. People have asked like how to edit to the beat of the music. I'm going to do one on that. I think in Filmora enough people have asked it. I think you want to know how to do it, and I'll show how, because there's a couple of features in there that allow you to put in markers and things, and learning how to find where that beat is super important so that you can drop your edits right on the beat and have your video really pop and jump with the bass and the beat of the music. It's a little bit of a skill. You have to learn to use your eyes to watch a waveform as much as you do relying on the software to just find beats. Filmora doesn't have a specific feature that just finds the beats for you. You have to learn how to see the music, how to not just hear it, but see it in your waveform. And that's a really common thing that people like to do, get their music to work with the video. I'm going to take that one step farther, and I want to say to you guys, think about when you edit your videos, how your music plays along. I spend a lot of time picking specific music for specific projects, and I'll find the right track that moves, that feels the right way, that hits crashes and changes in the song, in the track itself, so that when something happens in the video, the music accentuates it. Hold on, I want to just make sure. Chicks with Dixon, I guess what I meant was how to create a color in lower thirds with the graphics a specific color, not the text. With the graphics specific color. I don't know if I understand the exact question. How to create, what I meant was how to create a lower thirds with the graphics a specific color, not the text. I'm not following you. And so in a lower third, typically you're gonna see, you're talking about the motion graphics of it, because there's just a font and then there's just the animation of the motion. So you'll have to feel free to ask me that question in private. Hit me up on Twitter or something like that, and let me see if I can answer it better for you, because I don't want to miss your point, but I don't want to waste time trying to get to what it was you were trying to ask. All right, listen, I've talked a lot today. That went pretty good. I hope I answered all your questions. If you guys have any other questions for me, feel free to drop them in any of the comment section of any of my videos. I'm always there to try to help out with things that you guys might be having problems with, overcoming issues with Filmora. I do my best to try to get those issues resolved. I appreciate you guys coming by and hanging out. It's always a pleasure. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for hanging out in chat, and I will see you guys really soon, all right? Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.